Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphen It with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor to the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphen It listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now. Yo, what is happening? This is Randy Randall. Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast Hyphenate. I'm really excited for today's show. I have Jesse Matthewson from KENmode from Canada. Some very dark, sludgy, awesome, alternative, scrappy, I don't know, amphetamine reptile-esh, awesome band from Canada. They've been going out for a long time. They have their 9th album, Void, coming out September 22nd, which was a few days ago now already, but it's out now. KENmode's 9th album, Void, is out now on Artifact Records. So I'm really excited to share with you the interview I have with Jesse coming up here quickly. He also runs a management label, and just, in general, I feel like anybody doing, a DIY band, for more than a decade is very much qualifies as a hyphenate. I think, just the many hats you wear of photographer, music video director, graphic designer, tour manager, artist, everything. It's just being in a band for so many years, you definitely get to wear a lot of hats and definitely qualify as a hyphenate. We get into it a little bit, his kickboxing, Muay Thai kickboxing practice. And I think it's really interesting. I'm starting to get a feel now going into, I think, is this our 4th or 5th interview of this first season? There really is like a lot of interesting things coming out about a lot of the people I've been interviewing. Of just sort of what it is to be, what does it mean to be a multi-hyphenate, and what are some of the things that motivate us, and I count myself in there, from doing band stuff to now doing this podcast stuff and all the other stuff I've done in between, music video, directing, producing for other music tracks, engineering things, and then as well as, like I said, the aforementioned, just being in a band for a long time and tour managing and doing all the other fun stuff, graphic designing, all the things we've done to just make the band interesting and creatively fulfilling. You just end up having to wear all those different hats and play all those different roles. But I'm really excited that that this podcast has been going so well. I feel like this is my first time really get to chime in and thank everybody for listening. I would love to hear from everybody. I have an email set up, hyphenatehalftime@gmail.com, where that's where you can write in, and Aaron and I will read your email on the air and on the halftime shows that we do in between each of these interview shows. But it's been awesome. I've gotten a lot of really great feedback, tons of good feedback from people, and people reaching out, learning about me, learning about different people on the show, and setting up tons of great new interviews. So please reach out with questions, with thoughts, criticism. I'll take it all. I'm not thin-skinned here. I'm definitely learning on my feet as we go. So that's hyphenatehalftime@gmail.com. But I want to thank everybody at Ruinous, Joe, Patrick, Chris at Ruinous, for all their support and help making this podcast happen. This has really been a fun, wild adventure. We got a lot of really good interviews coming up through the fall, and having a great time doing it. So thank you. Please reach out. I'd love to hear from everybody, what they think about it. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's my name, Randy, RANDY, is my middle initial, and then Randall, RANDALL. It's a funny story. That's also been an email address I've used for a lot of years, Randy S. Randall. All right, that's sort of how you set it up. And I remember people have asked me, it's like, is it Randy's Randall? And I think, just having a funny name like Randy Randall is enough of a concern. I don't think I'd make an email address Randy's Randall. It's funny that doesn't translate like I think of it as my middle initial, which is my middle name is Steven. So S for Steven, but it's a funny one. Yeah. So thank you everybody for being here. Also want to say thank you to DistroKid. Make sure you go to check out distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate to get your what is it, 30% off? I don't know. You get a good discount there, and it's cool. If you want to get your music up online on all the streamers, go to DistroKid. You can get full worldwide streaming platform distribution for your music. Get it heard, get it out there. So I want to say thank you to DistroKid for supporting the show, and everybody at Ruinous, and everybody out there listening right now. So let's go to my conversation with Jesse Matthewson of KENmode. Hold on to your butts. Yes. Jesse, thank you so much for joining me here on Hyphenate. I really appreciate you sitting through all the technical issues for the listeners at home. We had a fun adventure in modern recording.
It was so boring. It's barely worth mentioning, but it was a juggle.
Well, I appreciate you being patient. So it's a pleasure to meet you. I am a fan of your band, and it's exciting to get to meet you and talk to you in person. Tell me.
Well, I'm just some loser in an office over here, so you'll learn that quick enough.
Yeah, tell me. Let's start at the beginning. Where do you come from, and how did this all get going?
Oh God, we're up here in Winnipeg, Canada, in the middle of nowhere. Been doing the thing for 24 years now. Holy shit. That is the case. September 1999 was the beginning of this ridiculous band.
Wow.
And here we are.
Incredible. And just one band? Was there high school bands before this, or
this was the high school band.
Was the high school band. Wow.
I remember having an internet thread where a few musicians were lamenting that. I think the first person it was either Topon from Fucked Effects or Kurt Ballou from Converge that brought up the whole, like, when you're a high school band never breaks up, you kind of have all these ghosts of Christmas past that, like, are documented and the whole world knows about, because, like, it was quite literally the band you're in now doing the thing in was how you cut your teeth. All the embarrassing missteps, it's all there for everyone to see. So we don't have the luxury of starting a new project and having it be like pro and hitting the ground running, looking great. We have all the, like, the first record that we go.
Yeah. I like the first record.
It's
a very different band, but I like it.
Very different band. I've actually I talked, because it came out 20 years ago now, and we recorded it 22 years ago, and I've had some conversations on social media about it. Like, I still think the riffs are good. My biggest complaint about that record was the production and the lack of any real producer talent in Winnipeg, because we were quite literally children when we made it. Shane would have been 17. I was 19, I think. And our city didn't really have producers who knew how to record heavy music. And, like, because we were so young, we didn't have money to go travel to go do the thing, because that would have been beneficial. Like, and we subsequently did that. Like, with our Venerable record, we went and recorded with Kurt Ballou, and then we started trying to get, like, a laundry list, like a bucket list of all the people we wanted to work with. But if we would have lived in a city that had that kind of talent, who knows how that could have changed the trajectory of the band? Because, like, when you're 19 and writing songs that have 19 riffs in them, like, it would have been good to have someone who knows how to record that and kind of guide you. Like, maybe you don't need to have that many riffs. maybe you could chill out. Maybe this would sound better, or just even someone to, like, keep your timing in check. I don't know. It would have been a completely, but then again, every misstep brings you to where you are. And as long as you're happy with where you're at, who cares, right?
Yep. No, it's good. I mean, warts and all is the way to do it. You know what I mean? You're keeping it honest, and even if you change names, somebody would go back and be able to find everything else you ever did, or they'd want to, at least. I think that's part of the fun of it. I know I do that with bands. You want to go back and find the demos and the early 4-track tapes. If you really love the band, that's just part of the fan experience.
Yeah. And I mean, that's another thing I've been talking about, particularly with this album cycle, with the Barbie movie coming out. Like, that's been something that's been haunting us since we formed this band. And the name is, like, a Black Flag reference, but like knucklehead hardcore and metal dudes have thought it's a reference to Ken and Barbie
Oh,
since
that's
we
amazing.
started and have made a point of not listening to us because of that. Cool, bro. Whatever. But like it's little things like that. Like I
Yeah.
thought that phrase was
Oh,
it was cool when I was a teenager, but like if you would have started a new band, probably wouldn't have called us this.
oh, that's so funny. Um, that is too funny. That totally like slipped my mind. I know when I saw a thing when Margot Robbie was promoting Barbie. She's an Australian actress, and she was promoting Australia. And they're like, "Well, like the other Barbie we have here." And she's like, "What do you mean? Like, there's an Australian Barbie?" They're like, like throw a shrimp on the Barbie. And it's just one of those obvious things in front of you, like, "Oh, I don't even put that together at all." Uh,
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. The Ken band.
Yeah,
Uh,
because it has nothing to do with it, and it never has. But like,
yeah.
yeah, this movie, people, you gotta capitalize. Like, I don't want that association. Like, it's never been about that.
It was never the point. Yeah. So why don't feed into the misconceptions more?
Yeah, I
I
mean, we could
yeah.
for sure make some money if we did some sort of parody. But like, again, I don't have the energy.
Yeah. And I don't think your fans would be the ones who would be the one. You know what I mean? It's like doesn't seem like they're even thinking the same thing too. They're probably just as
Yeah.
confused as everyone else is.
Although every time I bring it up, like the concept, this is conceptually it will work. Like if you took a pink tea, put our cover of Loved on it, and then did KENmode in that Barbie font, like people would buy that.
I see. I see.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would work. And I know why it would work. And like legit fans of our band would buy it, but I just don't have the energy to put into that. Like,
Well, that's a marketing genius. I mean, that's the other
yeah,
thing too. I wanted to talk to you. So, the podcast is called Hyphenate, and we talk to people who do many things and wear many hats. And I think what I found is that anybody kind of coming from a DIY scene, the idea of wearing many hats just feels normal.
yeah,
It's
you
not
have to.
unusual. Yeah. Right. That it's just part of what we do. Um, but I see, you've run a label in the past, you have a management company, and you're also involved in Muay Thai kickboxing.
Yeah, I'd say label
Okay.
definitely in air quotes because I flirted with it. Actually, this is a funny roundabout story. When I was flirting with the idea, which had to have been 15 years ago, I incorporated a company, and we never made enough money that it made any sense actually putting any of it through that entity because at the time we were just losing money. So put it all through KENmode and we can get tax back.
I see.
Um, and fast forward to like what would it have been? Like probably over 10 years later. No, maybe 10 years later. We kept the incorporated entity alive just because I paid to have it done. So I didn't want to just have it lapse. And when Shane and I had started our venture with MKM Management Services, we used Arctotis Records, my incorporated entity, as a shell company for dividends. So now it's quite literally just somewhere where we hide capital.
Oh, that's so funny. You're such a crude businessman. I don't
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
It is Arctotis Records Holding Co.
Well, I know things are very different in Canada in terms of support for artists and arts and things like that. Like you said, you can kind of apply for things, and there's a different kind of relationship that you have with government and taxes in Canada.
Yeah, it's
than the States.
a little bit more European in approach. It's yeah, I don't know a ton about all the different European programs, but from what I've scratched the surface with over there, I'd say Canada's, and this is the way it is with most things culturally with Canada. We're like halfway between America and Europe, or like always pretending like we want to fit in with Europe, yet we really fit in better with America. So, but I'll take advantage of the programs that are here.
Heck yeah, might as well, right? I mean, you qualify for them.
Yeah.
So starting in '99 as teenagers, reflecting back on all this time, like what have you learned? Obviously, a million things, but in terms of like being a hyphenate and doing multiple things, like as you look back on some of those early lessons, like what do you wish you knew then that you know now when you started?
I mean, there's a part of me, and I mean, we did things in the opposite direction that most bands do. Most bands, they really cut their teeth when they're young. They tour a ton when they're young. They burn out, and then they go to school and figure their life out. We because we're from Winnipeg and not really connected to anything, touring has always been hard. And it's largely like a geographic barrier that you got to get over. And I always tell people this, like, in terms of Canadian cities, the closest one that has a population of 1 million people or more is Calgary, and that's a 15-hour drive from us. In terms of America, it's Minneapolis, St. Paul, which is like almost an 8-hour drive and an international border. So like, if you're going to try and do the thing, you got to be committed to doing the thing, because it's not like weekend warrior stuff is not an option. So we didn't really take the plunge. We flirted with it. Like, I know we did our first Western Canadian tour in 2002, which was like 3 years after being a band. Did our first US tour in 2003, but like, we were in university, so we were doing all this during our summer vacation. So we kept doing the school thing, graduated, started working, and it was only then that we kind of went like, ugh, is this the rest of our lives? This? Let's maybe see how far we can push the band. Like, I felt like we were good enough to fit in on like the international scene, but we never really put ourselves out there enough to give anyone a reason to give a shit. And that was really the kick in the pants to try to get on everyone's radar. We quit our jobs. Well, it was a bit of a process. We spent like 2 years prepping, wanted to make a record that made sense, wanted to save up some money so we could afford to do this, and wanted to like set up like the framework, a good label to help promote us, reconnect with especially the States, because we hadn't toured down there since 2004, which at that point had been 5 years. And like, with the way the US scenes go, like, if you're not in people's faces, you might as well not have existed. So we reestablished ourselves, started touring in the US, linked up with a bunch of the bands that were doing things at the time, and just, I think, did a pretty intelligent approach for a band like us to try to like set up traction to do the thing. So in 2011, we quit our jobs and just started touring.
Wow.
And did that until we burnt out.
And so so there was a good kind of push from like 99 to 2004 of kind of being the local band, or sort of the
local band for sure for like 3 years, and then trying to start spreading out without doing it seriously.
Got it. And that's usually where the band, the name would change, or the one band would break up and start another band. But because it's you and your brother, do you think that was, you guys were able to sort of retain the core of the two of you, and then sort of the bass players and other members could kind of shift, and so you could create the new band while still maintaining you and your brother and the name?
Definitely. And I think, if I'm being honest with myself, a large part of why we kept the name was some of the initial associations we had and the connections we made with certain key people in the US, that it made it so our name meant something in tiny niche circles. And I don't know if I even acknowledged at the time that that was important, but it would maintain being arguably the most important connections we've had for our entire career. So I am glad we stuck with it, despite the connotations of being a bunch of losers associated with Barbie.
A bunch of Barbie's boyfriends.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I know what you mean, though. That's the thing when you're young and you're first going out on the road. I still have people's names saved in my phone, or as the bands that they were in at that time, and they've gone on to be in other bands. But you always, you sort of remember those first things. It's like so and so from this band. Oh, now they play in this bigger band, but I always know them from this band.
Yeah.
Always know them when. So it's just if everyone's going to remember you as that, might as well stick with it.
Yeah, and I mean, it helped get our foot in the door when we were trying to do the thing again. So
that's incredible. And then tell me a little bit about, so the label, you were putting yourself out. Were you putting out other bands as well?
Yeah, it was kind of an idea I flirted with around 2007, 2008 into 2009. I put out a couple other bands that were just friends of mine. And it wasn't like a big production. I think I don't even know if I ended up pulling the trigger on getting proper distribution, because at the time, that was right around when, what was it? Lumberjack and Mortem fell apart. So like all the distribution companies, all the indie distribution companies that had been kind of the mainstays of the scene in that section of it, all had been going bankrupt. And that was as like quite directly the period that MP3 streaming, well, not streaming, it wasn't streaming yet. It was piracy, if we're being real, had like really murdered physical sales, and a lot of very pivotal companies were going under as a result, and a lot of labels decided to throw in the towel too. So yeah, I never pulled the trigger on getting proper distribution because all the connections I had were falling apart. And then we shifted our focus again and decided we wanted to focus on KENmode, and I just dropped that whole idea.
Got it. It's really hard. You know, my partner in the band, No Age, he runs a record label, and just, you know, just through approximation to just seeing everything he goes through, it's so much hard work. I've never really been jealous of that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, you got to want to do it. And most people in bands that are doing that, they're either doing it out of necessity or because they love it. But a lot of the time you just don't have time to do both. I don't know. I definitely partake in some of the label activities when we put out our own records, because I can't help myself. Like my degree in school, like I have a business degree from the Asper School of Business in Manitoba, but my specialty was marketing and small business management. So like I can't help but get involved, and I always want to make sure the overall marketing project is like managed properly, because if it's not, too many things fall off the table. And I also want it done to a certain consistency and standard, with because it's just, I don't know, probably just a neurotic tendency of myself.
No, but I think it is interesting to point out, though. I think, you know, especially in our contemporary time with everything released online and social media presence, the idea of having a unified sort of brand, you know, if not, you know, a band, you know, this idea of, you know, having all of your stuff look good and come out at the same time and, you know, be of the same sort of quality. It just makes sense. It's expected of you anyway, I think, as a band.
Yeah,
So the labels want to see, you know, all the artwork and everything up, you know, whatever it is, 6 months ahead of time. And so you can kind of plan out a routine where it would have been, I'm sure, radically different 30 years ago, having to work with, you know, graphic designers in each country and each territory to come up with their own, you know, posters, and each promoter could have a, you know what I mean? It seems like the idea of just sending one JPEG around to everybody. It's like, oh, okay, it looks good. Everybody's using the same photo. We're all up to date. Great.
Yeah, even just thinking about like the little checklists like that we were provided like over a decade ago of like, these are all the things that you need to have prepared for an album cycle. Like when that was new and fresh and you're like terrified, yeah, I need to have all this submitted like 6 months in advance. Oh my God. And now it's just like, well, duh.
Yeah.
Of course. How could you not feel like you're just scrambling and drowning all the time if you don't have that prepared at least 10 months in advance? Oh my gosh.
I remember a few years back, I was probably 10 years ago, and we were touring in Europe. And I was like, wow, everybody has the same photo of us. How did they get this photo? That's incredible. I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed at that point. I'm like, wait, what's going on? How does this work? It's the same thing used everywhere. But I guess it's almost like, I think what I was trying to get at is it's expected of artists now to sort of have a degree in marketing. It's good that, you know, you came prepared with that. But I think even for people that don't, like myself, it's expected that we have some understanding of the relationship between the artist and the audience, and how,
which is honestly kind of terrifying, and that's 100% social media's fault. I've kind of been lamenting, especially like the last year, since the pandemic, like as all these stupid platforms change, like Instagram wanting to become TikTok so bad, like basically bands / brands are expected to be not only musical artists, but we also have to be videographers now. And like, that's something I never signed on for. Like, as we've just been discussing, like we're expected to be borderline brand marketers as well. Like that is not something people who pick up a guitar expect to ever be a part of this package when they first do this as a teenager. Like, ugh, it's just, that part of it is truly gross. But like, if you're gonna keep things into perspective, like it is the reality when you're starting your own business, and that is what bands have to become, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, I remember as a teenager getting started out, like, you'd draw a logo or you draw something on your papers at school. And that was always fun. Or you'd make a sticker, make t-shirts. It was the kind of the elective sort of, subjects you could go like, oh yeah, I drew this dumb thing. Oh, we should use that as
Yeah.
a cover. That should be a sticker. This should be a t-shirt. There was little things that surrounded it that could be kind of fun. Like I said, kind of sideline activities. And it seems like those sideline activities have sort of become the primary activities of sort of marketing music
Yeah.
projects. Like you got to have all of that stuff
Yet the
pretty
funny thing
strong.
is, even thinking about that as a kid, like what you're literally doing is flirting with merchandising and learning how to both generate it, how to manage it, how to organize selling it. Like these are all very valuable tools that I think too many people in bands completely discount their abilities in. Because like a lot of people get really good at this stuff and they think because they're working in music that it's non-transferable skills, which is completely wrong. We go over this stuff with our bassist all the time, who is entirely too self-deprecating, but he works for a theater, and the kind of events he throws and manages, like these aren't easy tasks. And like in say like IT, people pay a lot of money for people who know how to event manage. It's just funny that people in the arts so frequently discount their skills in these other avenues that like other people can really fleece folks on, monetarily speaking, and we all just kind of go like, oh, it's not worth anything, like, it's like a show, like someone will do it. Like, yeah, but you did it and you did it well.
Yeah. Yeah. Or getting t-shirts made, getting stickers made, getting flyers made, all those
Yeah.
things, graphic design work. It's let alone cross country freight hauling.
Yeah.
I think, I think anybody who's been touring for a number of years, you probably could shift to some kind of logistics coordination operation manager. Just figure out,
Yeah.
okay, well,
Yeah.
you're not going to get from Denver to San Francisco, without going over the Rockies, and you got to figure this out. You got, there's
Yeah. I
there,
think
we've ever done Minneapolis to Seattle. It's hard to do in one day.
which kind of gives you a business idea, creating like resumes for people in bands trying to transition
Ooh.
into regular business, like how to put all those skills into a format that makes sense for normal people, because it's
Right.
real, the experience
Yeah.
is real,
Yep.
but they never think they can put it on their resume, and they don't know how to put it on their resume in a way that sells themselves
Formatting
properly.
it correctly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Somebody
we're
got
creating.
an HR service
Yeah.
from band world to the corporate world. What does it take? You have more skills than you know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll run the ads here on Hyphenate. That'll be perfect.
Yeah.
You have to,
Perfect.
yeah. Once you get
We'll
it up,
share.
we'll get the ad revenue going.
Yeah, we'll share the profits.
Well, it's a funny thing, right? Because I always think about, in terms of hyphenating, is people, you can do many things at the simultaneous time, right? You do, I think being in a band is a good example of that. Like we've said, we go over all the stuff you have to do to promote yourself and merchandise things, sell things, and then be creative and actually get on stage and be an entertainer, as well as, a driver and,
An accountant.
accountant, yeah, all those things. But then also over time, right? I think that's the other thing too that can happen with a lot of artists is, it was never meant to be the main thing. Some people luck out, some people work really hard, and then but it's still the time changes you, and time changes the jobs. Like we said,
Yeah.
Instagram platforms will change, new things come up. So I feel like people hyphenate over time as it goes as well, or even just, so much of music is really geared towards, youth marketing, right? It's all about, young people, and it's the language of young people, and it's that kind of feeling of like getting north of 30, you start to see like, oh, okay, I'm going further and further away from the being able to really, touch Never Land. The Lost Boys are over there. I'm starting to, just by nature of time, you do start to fade away from being able to understand what's happening there.
Which
And so you got to find something else. You got to do
it-
something else and keep yourself creatively challenged and doing something.
or
Or yes, yeah, give me the other
in
side.
this line, like I really do feel like metal for some reason is less youth driven.
Hmm.
I don't know whether that's going to eventually kill the genre, but I like, even like I'm looking at a Decibel magazine right here.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Yeah. Um, and people have a tendency to not really care what the people playing it look like. They just want that sound. And you see a lot of artists breaking through in metal for the first time, and they'll be old. um, yeah, and I think the biggest part of that, and this has been something I've been talking about a lot on this album cycle, is it's a matter of trying to maintain a connection with the community, and you can do that. You just have to try a little harder, and that is, admittedly, as people get older, it's harder to maintain that connection, especially to younger people who don't have as much in common with you. But um, if you can maintain it, and like, I don't know, I've been fortunate. I'm obsessed and addicted to new music, so I am always trying to find something that will give me that feeling that I used to get when I was in my early 20s. Maybe it's pathetic, I don't know, but I can still do it, and I'm turning 42 soon. It is harder, but I can still do it. And I do believe it is what makes this band stay at least a little bit fresh after all this time. And people who lose that connection, that's when you start to see things go a little stale.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. But it's interesting you bring up metal. Like, I think when I listen to you, I don't necessarily, metal wouldn't be the first genre I would sort of peg you into. Maybe it's just coming from my background of punk and noise and these sort of things. Like, tell me a little bit about how the band finds itself, or how it has found itself in communities over
Yeah,
the years.
we've never found ourselves in a community. That's
Okay. Yeah, keeping in touch with the community. I'm trying to think, where do you guys fit? I mean, I see it on a kind of amphetamine reptile, sort of locust, sort of,
Yeah, I've always, at least for
power
the
violence.
last over decade, felt more of a kinship with kind of the general extreme music blanket, at least that goes on in North America. Europe's a little bit more religious to their genre lines, and I think they're easing up on that too. But especially like in the US, like within the last 10-15 years, the phrase hipster metal kind of became a thing, and it did encompass stuff from all spectrums of the extreme music world, from noise rock to black metal to harsh noise. Like, and because of that, I've always felt that's, if you can use that giant umbrella, we do fit in there, because we don't belong to noise rock, we don't belong to hardcore, we don't belong to metal. And usually people who like all those genres don't like us because we don't fit any of those like guidelines very well. And the people that do like us because we have a pretty wide variety of sounds that we bring to the table. But I do think that has always limited us, because especially as time goes on, people, when they want to hear something, they want to hear that one sound. And I know I brought this up again very recently, like the reason a song like Honey Bucket works for the Melvins is because Hag Me exists. Like, they don't do an album that all sounds like that one song. And that being my favorite band, that's always been the template for us. I don't want to write 8 Painlesses, because it doesn't pop then. There's no dynamic, and it doesn't tell much of a tale. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to doing like a hardcore EP that just smashes you over the head, but like I wouldn't want to do like 40 minutes of that.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah. You bring up the Melvins. I feel like they're another one that, you could kind of put in. I think they get kind of unceremoniously sort of lumped into grunge only because of their timing and proximity to Nirvana.
Yeah, and some
But
people do the whole like, well, sludge metal or whatever, and even though that term has come about so much, I've always found it funny. Like, people have called us sludge metal. It's like, I guess there's songs, yeah, but that's not really very suiting. But whatever makes you feel good about calling us, it's fine.
just as long as you're calling us something, don't forget about
Yeah.
it. Yeah. But over the years, I mean, in terms of your influences and, like you say, kind of connecting to finding new music that's still bringing that excitement, how have you found your music evolving and almost sort of hyphenating as it goes? Like, I know you've introduced more piano, keyboards, saxophone, multi-instrumentalists, and when outside of, but that, like, what are some of the motivating factors to that, how you evolved the creative side of the band?
Just trying to do stuff that doesn't make me bored. It, it's all filtering whatever music that I'm enjoying through my stupid head and bouncing it off my bandmates and seeing what kind of mess we can come up with that feels genuine and different from things we've done in the past. And that, especially as you've been around this long, it does get to be difficult. Sometimes you do come up with a new riff and it's like, this sounds like something. What is it? Oh shit. This sounds like that riff on this record that we did 10 years ago. God damn it. We're ripping ourselves off. Fuck.
It's a good problem to have. It means you've been around long enough and you've written good enough music that you can come back around.
Yeah, but at the same time, I also
Eating
feel
your
it's
own
kind of
tail.
sad.
Right. Well, but it's the thing too. But if you would ask the fans, they'd probably love those songs.
Yeah, true
If we're
enough.
being honest, it's like, oh, I love that. It sounds just like this one. Even
Yeah,
from the creator side, you're like, I always feel like what I've noticed for in my band and our creativity is we'll do a better version of that song. And so the
yeah,
question becomes, so hopefully we can do it in the same recording session and then just dump the lesser version of that song.
yeah,
But if it goes across records, then that's when you're like, it's a better version of the song from the last record.
yeah.
You can't do
That
that.
was
You
actually
can't put it out.
that
Yeah.
was a big issue with us with writing the Null and Void like arc, was because it ended up being 2 years worth of writing sessions. We had to keep trying to attempt to do a different style so it could fit into this overarching bulk of material. And anytime you'd come up with something that sounded kind of like something we'd already done, it's got to be better to squash out the old one or not even bother trying.
Yeah.
And I definitely squashed out a couple songs that's like, yeah, those the new one's better. This
Yeah.
other one's just garbage now. It'll never be heard. And it was a good song, but it'll never be heard.
Right. But hopefully the better song wins. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
the whole band better, the whole record better. Um, I want to jump into the Muay Thai kickboxing. Is that right? Is it right to call it kickboxing, or what do you call
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
martial art.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Tell me a little bit about that and sort of what brings you where you connect to that, and is there a connection between that and the music, or sort of that expression?
I started that when I was 25, so I've been doing it for like 17 years now. 16? What year is it? Yeah, I
Yeah.
think 16 years now. Um, but actually I haven't been doing it much this year because I had hip surgery in May,
Oh,
which is because of that.
oh, gnarly.
Um, but yeah, it became another outlet for me, especially when it comes to like managing clinical depression, um, and general moodiness. It did become a lifesaver. Just and it's really finding something athletic that you enjoy, which I'd always struggled with. I think I'm approaching all of it more maturely now than I ever used to. I used to really struggle with when something was boring to me, I just wouldn't do it. And I've definitely got better. I actually, out of necessity, had to start lifting weights again, only within the last like 6 weeks post surgery because I need it as a part of my rehab. But I did that in my early 20s and just stopped because I got bored. And I think I have a higher tolerance for that now because I don't mind it so much. But anyway, I'm getting away from the whole point. Um, yeah, with Muay Thai, I don't know. It's something I found very similar to music, um, in that you can never stop learning and getting better at it. So, um, it became something that was very easy to get obsessed with. Uh, and I mean that's kind of the story of my life. I don't have hobbies. I have obsessions, and usually the things that I really stick with are ones that don't come super naturally. Um, and like with music, I don't have very big hands. So I'm not a natural shredder. with something like martial arts, I'm a very stiff white guy with half Mennonite roots, so I'm not very coordinated. Uh, and I started when I was 25, and like I already my neck is all messed up from headbanging for years, so it's been a trip kind of learning to move a little different, and it's all had a huge impact on the band, the way I move on stage, um, even down to breathing when you're doing vocals. It's changed a lot for me. But yeah, on the difficult side, I tore my labrum in my right hip a number of years ago.
Oh
Um,
man, that sounds gnarly.
yeah, it's the sheath of cartilage that holds the femoral head in. So that tore, and I learned that I had a hip impingement too. So like it doesn't fit properly in there to begin with. And I think it originally happened while I was on tour in 2015 when we were on like a 2-month tour. A couple weeks in, I filmed a piece for Inside MMA in Los Angeles, and I was not warmed up. I hadn't been training, and I just kind of went for it. And then we continued on with the tour, and within a couple days, it felt like someone had stabbed a knife into my hip, and that lasted for like 3 weeks. I couldn't put on socks. I had to lay down in the van, but it eventually kind of went away, and I don't know why, but I kept doing like rehab exercises to make it so things didn't hurt and I could continue my day to day, and the searing pain didn't stick around. But after the pandemic, in 2022, when we started shooting music videos for our Null record, again, we hadn't played any shows since 2019, and shooting music videos, I kind of discounted the fact that when you're filming, it's like the hardest part of a set that you're doing, but you're doing that all day. And we did that for 3 days straight. And then I went right back into training. And within a couple weeks, when I was like play sparring, I like kind of did like a flinch move to make someone react, and all of a sudden something in my hip popped, and it was like, again, like someone stabbed me with a knife, like, oh, what was that? And I just thought I'd maybe strained my groin or something like that, and it turns out that I guess because the pandemic had made me a little less stable, hadn't been working out as much, it focusing on certain key muscle groups that help stabilize all that, I think I tore something further, and it had become now a chronic problem. So I discovered all the things that were wrong and got lined up for surgery. And actually the timing worked out perfectly because it was in like a dip in our activity right before the record could come out. So I had that in May, and I've been recovering all summer, and now I'm ready to tour.
Amazing. But you never had a full dislocation of the hip. Was it just
No,
it just
no.
pulled it enough to rip the labrum
Yeah.
surrounding it?
Which
Wow.
which then yeah, doing certain movements felt like I'd be getting stabbed. Thrusting your hips forward, leaning back, playing guitar, little things like that, things that I do all the time.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's gnarly. But again, like you said, it was a challenge, from the early days, and an obsession, and something that kind of keep you sort of in your own body,
Yeah.
mental, emotional sort of stuff. It's incredible. I could totally see like the parallel paths of sort of this, sort um of just practice and training, and as well, along with music, right? I mean,
Yeah, there's a discipline aspect, there's a creativity aspect, there's the never-ending journey of the ability to learn, which, I mean, you can find that with any art form really, but that is the one of the things I appreciate the most of it, because none of it ever really gets boring if you love it, because there's always stuff you can do, which is so cool. And that's been with this injury, I miss it so goddamn much.
oh man. Well, we got less than a minute. Tell me where people can find you. Where do you want people to go to find more?
KEN-mode.com. Everything's there. Stream
Awesome.
it, buy physical products, check us out on tour.
Incredible.
we won't bite your heads off, I swear.
Well, Jesse, thank you so much for taking the time and being patient with us while we got this all set up. It was really a pleasure to sit down and talk with you.
Oh, no worries. And thank you very much too. It was my
Awesome.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Take care, my man.
Thank you. Brad, thank you so much, Jesse, for sitting down with me and talking all things KENmode, management, Muay Thai, kickboxing, Canada. Really informative. Definitely go check out KENmode's new album, Void, out now everywhere where you get records. It is heavy. It is brutal. And I was really stoked to talk to Jesse. He's really such a nice guy. And yeah, really, really down to earth. It was cool getting to sort of pop in, see how they're doing. I imagine they're out on the road now as well, or will be shortly. So go follow them on all the socials. Just look for KENmode. That's KENmode. And yeah, see when they're coming to your town. Go out and see them. I also wanted to give a big thank you to Death by Audio Pedals for letting me give away a supersonic fuzz gun. What do they call it? Supersonic ray gun. One of this really cool fuzz pedals. And I want to announce the winner for that giveaway was Martin from Slovakia. I was not anticipating getting entries from all over the world. So thank you, Martin, for writing in and for listening to the show. And please tell everybody out there, if you're digging the show, please let everybody know. It's fun. It was fun to spread the word around. I'd love to get some more earballs on the show and more people listening and writing in. Again, that's -halftime@gmail.com if you want to send in any requests for people I should interview or things I should check out. If you have a band, send it to me. I want to hear it. Maybe I'll do some MP3 reviews or band reviews at the end time here. We just kind of hang out. So please, yeah, write me -halftime@gmail.com. And I will see you on the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.